Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt, Kanawha, West Hancock Athletics Podcast. This is episode 54, and tonight I have a high school coaching legend on with me, Mr. Kerry Van Winkle. Kerry was the head coach at Kanawha from 1968 to 1973. Came to Kanawha the same year Coach Sanger came to Britt. Had his best season in 73, the same year Coach Sanger had his best season, so there's some neat parallels to talk about there. And then he moved on to Roland-Story and won a couple state championships. Coach, how you doing tonight?
Very, very well, thank you, and
Good.
appreciate you having me on.
You bet. So I'm excited. I was telling Kerry before the episode started here, I'm always excited to get some Kanawha episodes into my lineup. So had Rod Barkema on at one point and Lois Stufflick and now Coach Van Winkle. So I'm excited for this one. Before we get going with Coach Van Winkle, I need to recognize my sponsors like always. I have 17 of them for tonight. We're talking again about a good chunk of money coming into the Sanger Legacy Fund doing this episode tonight. So I'd like to thank Nick Schmidt, Levi Don Trucking, Miller & Son Golf Cars, Carlson Drainage, the Original Saw Company, Jay Hiscocks of State Farm Insurance, Eric Kroll of Ag Performance, Kelly Real Estate, Jade and Tyler Kalsdorf, In His Image Photography, Window World, McNeese Tire and Auto, Swenson's Hardware, the Britt Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Daniel's Auto Collision of Charles City, Derek and Liz Ing with Vexen Fishing and Tackle Industries. So thanks to all those sponsors for giving so generously to the Legacy Fund as always. And in case you don't know, the Sanger Legacy Fund, that money is used to help fund the West Hancock Hall of Fame. We give out scholarships to graduating seniors. We support the athletic and activity funds at West Hancock as needed, and some other community outreach programs like the golf cart sheds at the course. We're working with Parks and Rec in Britt right now. So a lot of good causes we're giving money to. So please consider giving to the Legacy Fund, or if you want to sponsor a podcast, make sure to get a hold of me. You can go to sangerstrong.com for more information. All right, some way back when episodes. 5 episodes ago on episode 49 was Coach Travis Hagen. 15 episodes ago on episode 39 was John Weiland. 30 episodes ago on episode 24, I had John and Brent Hagen. And then 45 episodes ago on episode 9 was the 1986 Girls State Championship golf team. So I'll have those posted on my links on my Facebook page and stuff. So if you want to check out those old episodes, go ahead. I'm going to get to some sponsors here, and then Coach, we'll be ready to talk some Kanawha Bulldogs.
All righty.
Proud to announce that Derek and Liz Ing are sponsoring this episode. They sponsored some previous episodes of mine. They're both 2004 West Hancock grads and the owners of Vexen Fishing and Tackle Industries. Check them out for different fishing rods and lures for the fishing season coming up. Go to Vexen, VEXAN.com and tackleindustries.com to check out their products. Thanks again to Derek and Liz Ing, 2 West Hancock grads, for sponsoring the podcast. Then we have the Jay Hiscocks State Farm Team in Britt. They're a proud supporter of West Hancock and the Sanger Legacy Fund. They can help you with all your insurance needs, including auto, home, life, farm, business, and renter's insurance. For a free quote or review, give Jay or Lindsay a call at 843-3563. Go Eagles, says Jay. Then I have a couple more here, and we're going to get started. New sponsor tonight is Jade and Tyler Kalsdorf. Tyler and I played football together. He's a 2008 West Hancock grad and did a podcast with me a month or 2 ago. And he just simply wanted to give back to the foundation. So thanks to the Kalsdorfs. And then Nick Schmidt's been one of my long-term sponsors. He's a 2000 West Hancock graduate and wanted to, again, just simply give back to the Legacy Fund. So thanks to Nick Schmidt for sponsoring as well. And then Carlson Drainage. Call Darren Carlson for all your farm tile needs, including GPS-controlled pattern tiling, backhoe digging, and dozer work, as well as high-pressure water jetting. Carlson Drainage offers a complete sewer and drain cleaning service to fix all of your slow and clogged drains of any size and kind. Call Darren at 641-860-0500. That's Carlson Drainage. All right, Coach. Once again, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. You're a name I've known over the years. I follow high school football pretty closely and have for many years, and always knew that you did a good job at Roland-Story. And then it was a dozen years ago I found out that you actually coached at Kanawha, and I was kind of shocked to see that connection between where I grew up and just high school football in general. So I'm excited to have you on here and talk some Kanawha Bulldogs with you.
All right.
Let's
Sounds
start
good.
though. Tell us where you grew up, maybe a little bit of your athletic experience prior to getting into coaching.
I grew up basically in Ames, Iowa, and went all through school there. Uh, I was an athlete in junior high, and then about the time I started high school, I quit growing. And though I went out for sports and so on, I was never a starter or anything. I could run a pretty decent half mile, but never good enough to make the varsity 4x8 or anything like that. But I love sports, and my dad was a coach in middle school, and I just love sports, and I just kind of started out in college and something else. Then finally I got where I belonged and majored in history and minored in PE and coaching and went from there.
Where did you go to college?
Went to Iowa State.
Iowa State. So you didn't travel too far from Ames right to Iowa State, and then
Right.
eventually made your way back to Roland-Story, which is, I don't know, half an hour from Ames, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, about 15 minutes. Yeah.
That's all it is. Yep, cool. Talk about your family a little bit. Um, yeah.
Okay. My family, Kanawha was very, very deep dear to my heart, because that's when my family first started. My wife Marty and I got married in June of 1968, and my first job then after being at Northeast Hamilton for 2 years was to coach and teach at Kanawha. And it was there at Kanawha that we spent the 6 years, and our first 6 years together. And our two daughters, Hollis and Kristen, were born at Kanawha while we were at Kanawha, and so those 6 years have been just great, because we have made lifelong friends while we were there, and the friends that we're still in touch with and so on, those that are still alive. And it's just really a neat thing. And then a week ago Friday night, my son coaches at Gilbert,
Okay.
and they were playing at Algona. And so my oldest daughter Holly went with me, and we drove up there, and then on the way back we decided to go through Britt and then down through Kanawha.
Nice.
I wanted to see if she remembered anything, because she was really small at the time, but it was kind of a nostalgic little trip, because we went by the two houses in which we lived, and by friends' houses and things like that, and down the main street. And it was kind of an emotional thing for me, because I knew this was coming up.
Yeah.
And stuff, and it was really neat.
Yeah. Did the school look similar to you, or does that change quite a bit since the 70s?
No, I think it looked, well, at night it looked the same.
Yeah, hard to really tell, but
yeah. What are they using it for now? Is it a
it's the middle school.
middle school? Okay. Yeah.
I believe it's 6th through 8th grade there.
Okay.
When I was growing up, they had an elementary there, so they had like one teacher per grade, and then 7th and 8th grade was considered the junior high.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember when, but they moved all the elementary kids to Britt, and then moved 6th grade over to Kanawha and made it a middle school, and I believe that's still how it goes
Okay.
nowadays. But I had a great experience over there. Pretty sure we wore Kanawha Bulldog jerseys for middle school practice that you probably had when you were a coach there. They were probably from the early 70s. But 7th graders had to wear just old West Hancock jerseys. 8th graders got to wear Kanawha Bulldog jerseys to practice, and that was a big deal to us.
Were they the short sleeve purple ones and then the white ones?
Yep. And I remember the sleeves went down like past your elbow a little bit on us, because they were that old school short sleeve one, but they're pretty neat. So, yeah. You said you taught at Northeast Hamilton for a couple years as well?
Yeah, my first 2 years I lived in Webster City, and then we all drove to Blairsburg, where Northeast Hamilton was, and I was a guidance counselor and then a part-time teacher.
Okay.
And then I had junior high football, junior high boys and girls basketball, and then assistant high school girls track. And so I got introduced very much into coaching by the staff there at Northeast Hamilton, and I enjoyed very much being there for the 2 years I was there.
Yep. And then was it the head coaching job that enticed you to Kanawha then at that point?
Yes, I wanted to try it, see if I could make it as a high school coach, and at that time teachers were kind of in short supply, and so there were opportunities to coach football and basketball and stuff, and so I applied for it and I lucked out and got it.
Nice. What was your do you remember the interview process going into that? Was it pretty intense or was it more like, please come here? Because right now in education, it's kind of that like if you have a teaching degree, you're going to get hired somewhere. Was it similar to that? You said there was short supply, or was it?
It was kind of like that. Yeah, it was a very easy interview. I mean, very very easy going and friendly and all that. And I can remember my wife, who was my fiance at the time, I said, "Well, I'll go in and you just drive around town and come on back." Looked out the window and she was back in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. She had
Not
driven
all.
up and down every street in town and then was back. And so the superintendent invited her in, so she was part of the interview too.
Nice. Yeah. Well, if you're going to hire a coach, you kind of hire the wife too. You know that
Yeah, I
goes with.
don't think she knew what she was getting into at the time,
Yeah.
but it was, yeah, it was good.
Yeah. The football part of the interview, did they ask you a lot of specific X and O's type of questions, or was it more about your leadership, or do you remember how that all went?
I don't remember too much of it. I don't think it was a whole lot about X's and O's, but uh, just about what experience I'd had and
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah. And I always ask people this that, from your generation, do you remember what your first like couple contracts were in terms of like how much teachers got paid back in the late 60s? Do you remember that at all?
Yep. I at Northeast Hamilton, because I was a guidance counselor, I got a little bit more, but I think my first contract was $6,000.
Oh, geez.
And then when I got to Kanawha, it went up a little bit and so on, but it wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That always just fascinates me because, my wife and I are both teachers nowadays, and we kind of know obviously what teachers get paid in this time period. So it's kind of neat to compare to back then. So I think a lot of the people I've talked to on these have said similar type numbers. So, but the times are different too, and things cost, maybe not as much, but it's
Yeah.
still kind of neat to hear about what that read on that piece of paper you signed. So,
Yeah. Well, I was very lucky because my wife had just gotten through nurses training and was a registered nurse. And so
okay,
she could get a job anywhere,
yeah,
and which she did and stuff. So we were okay that way.
yeah, definitely. Not much has changed there either. I think if you're a nurse today, you have any job you want pretty much. So,
That's
yeah,
right. There's plenty of need.
yeah, lots of it. So you were in Kanawha from the fall of '68 until the spring of '74. So '73 was your last football season.
Yeah.
Before we get to that season that I really want to talk about and Don DeWard and some other stuff, what were your first impressions then of the community, the school, and the football team you inherited?
Well, I guess I going in, I really didn't know what to expect. Having taught at Blairsburg was smaller than Kanawha.
Mm,
The school wasn't at that time, but Blairsburg itself was. So Kanawha looked fine. It was a town of about 800 at that time. I think 800 to 900 or something
sounds
like
right.
that. And it was just a nice little town. And I remember when we drove in for the interview and drove out, the sign on the barber shop was spelled Babrer, Babrer. And I think they had purposely left it that way. Somebody had made a mistake when they stuck the letters up there.
Mhm.
And I made the mistake, well, I don't think it's going to be too hard to teach here,
Yeah.
but it was funny to see that.
Yeah. Spelling's not a priority apparently, but other stuff. Yeah.
But it was a nice town.
Yep. Do you remember the Town Tap? It'd be the bar on Main Street up there. Was that what? Do you remember if that's what it was called back then?
Well, there were two. There was one down at toward the south end, and I saw the other night when we went through there that a tap was still there. I don't know if it was the same one, but they also had a bowling alley
Okay.
with with a bar, and I don't think that's there now, is it?
No, there. I think there's the Town Tap, and that's it for like bars and restaurants. They had a restaurant off and on for years. And I don't think they have one anymore. So
Okay.
I asked because that's my wife's ex-husband's family has owned that for over 100 years. I just didn't know if it was named something else when you were back there, if that was the place to go to get a bite to eat or something. But
Usually the bowling alley was the place to go to get a bite to eat, and there was, like you said, a little restaurant, but it wasn't always open.
yeah, yeah, I'm not sure if that would have been it or not, but who knows? I grew up in Britt, so
Oh,
My Kanawha memories are um, the 2 years of junior high, and then I was a long term sub there for about 3 months before I got my first job down in southern Iowa here. So
I
um,
see.
kind of drove through the town, obviously to get there for school and everything else, but didn't know everything about it. So your football team, do you remember what kind of program you inherited? Was it a good situation to step into? Was it a rebuilding situation? What do you remember about that?
Well, it was, as far as attitude and desire to win, it was a good situation to step into because they had won 3 straight conference championships.
Okay.
Uh, Problem was a lot of them had graduated
Yeah.
and stuff, but I still had a nucleus of kids that had played quite a bit that were really dedicated. It was, I think the slogan was "Go for 4"
Yeah.
and stuff, and I had a good group of kids to work with, and they accepted me, and away we went.
What did you have to do to kind of establish yourself as, I don't know, what were you, like 24, 25 at the time? If you'd taught for just a couple years prior. So you weren't a whole lot older than the kids. Do you remember what you had to do to kind of get yourself set, or was it more just respect them, they'll respect you back type of mentality?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. I was 26, and I was new to it, and I was feeling my way, but I tried to give them the impression that I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's teaching in general. I always joke with my kids, with my coworkers, you just got to sound confident in what you're doing, and they'll believe you know what you're doing most of the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, everyone has those days, but yeah, I like I was saying, I love your generation of coaches, all these guys that are up there in the wins column, the Twaits and the Sangers and the Van Winkles and the Jerry Southmaids and all those guys. And you hear stories about how it was, the hard knock type coaching back then. So I wasn't sure if you were included in that or what kind of practices you ran and, the mentality of the kids and stuff. So I'm always curious about that. So,
It was probably that way. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the only way we knew,
Yeah.
I guess, that generation of coaches that you blocked and tackled and you had a lot of contact in practice and you didn't worry about length of practice or this or that. And you just practiced until you were ready.
Yep, yep, and now there's so many regulations on what you can and can't do, and there's a lot of red tape.
Well, when I first went to Roland-Story, I didn't know that practice was supposed to end at 5:30.
Yeah,
And as soon as the church bells started to ring at 5:30, they all started to get to leave the first few practice or the first practice. I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, where are you going? Practice is over." I said, "No, it isn't." "Yes, it is. Church bells are ringing." I said, "But I didn't say it was over." And then here comes the athletic director. He had just gotten back, and he was the junior high football coach and just gotten back. Gee, comes running on the field. "You got to get off of here." I said, "Why?" And so that was something that we had to work out. later on with him and the superintendent that the length of practice and stuff. I said, you can't win doing this.
Yeah. So
But
you won that battle then? They caved and let you practice later then?
finally, yeah.
Yeah. How long did that take?
No, I don't know, a week or two, maybe.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. It was. I mean, I guess I hadn't asked. It was
Yeah.
my own fault. I hadn't asked.
Yeah.
And of
That's
course,
that's a weird situation just to
used
assume
to
that you
doing
would know.
what I did wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well, at Kanawha, there were times when, later in the season when it started to get dark, that the parents would pull up with their cars and shine the lights out on the field,
So you can keep practicing.
practice field, so we keep I think it was to keep practicing. I don't know if it was to tell me to get off, but
I'm
we
taking
had
advantage of this. I got some light.
longer practices. They provided the light,
Yeah.
so it was kind of neat that way.
Yeah, that's cool. Has that old movie type of feel to it. Remember the Titans.
Yep.
Um, the field in Kanawha, though, I don't remember if they had lights or not when I was in school there. I assume you'd have to have lights at the field for games.
Yeah,
Um,
we had lights.
just they didn't want to turn it on for at 5:30 for a practice. Probably would be my guess.
Yeah, the field was laid out diagonally
Hmm.
across the outfield of the baseball diamond, and so we had lights from the baseball diamond as well as a row of football lights.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that cool. That field was a cool layout back there. I remember it's just kind of back there, and
Yeah.
I always enjoyed playing back there in middle school. So, all right, we're gonna get to your Kanawha seasons here in a minute. I'm gonna get to a few more sponsors, give you a chance to catch your breath, and we'll keep moving. I'd like to
Okay.
thank one of my long-term sponsors, Michael and Brianne Ewing of Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, with locations in Britt, Kanawha, Clarion, Belmont, and Dow's. Mike is a 1998 graduate of West Hancock, and his family's been privileged to care for the communities of Britt and Kanawha since 1977. You can find him online at ewingfh.com or on Facebook. Give him a call at 843-3839 or 762-3211. That's Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company. Then another long-term sponsor is Daniels Auto Collision in Charles City. Owner Jason Daniels is a 1990 West Hancock grad. Whether you need a minor fix-up or complete collision repair, Daniels Auto Collision is North Iowa's premier auto body shop and will have your vehicle back on the road looking better than new. With over 30 years of experience and all major insurances accepted, why take your chances with anyone other than Daniels Auto Collision? Call them at 641-220-3805. Email them at danielsautocollision@gmail.com or check them out at danielsautocollision.com. The Showalter family in Window World of Mason City is a proud sponsor of the podcast and the Sanger Legacy Fund. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Fly high, Coach Sanger and the late Joe Showalter. Miller and Sons Golf Cars in Britt is your family-owned operation with over 50 years of business experience. Skip and Jim Miller worked together with their dad Monty until his passing in 1996. Associated with Easy Go, Miller and Son now calls on over 1,000 golf cars in 3 states. Companies and courses are always extremely happy with their products, service, and honesty. This has resulted in double-digit growth each passing year. Based just outside of Britt, Miller & Sons employs 18 full-time employees and 3 part-timers. The next generation is being trained as we speak to ensure long-term stability. For more information, contact them at 843-4132. Email them at customerservice@millergolfcars.com or visit them at millergolfcars.com. That's Miller & Sons Golf Cars. And then Levi Don Trucking is my next sponsor. Thanks to Levi Don, 2008 West Hancock grad, and his trucking company for sponsoring all of these episodes. Call Levi at 641-860-0077 or look him up on Facebook. All right, let's get to some actual football here, Coach. 1968 to 1973 were your 6 years at Kanawha, and you said earlier that you had great experience there and still have fond memories. So let's dig into some of those memories. I was not able to find a whole bunch of like your records year by year, but I did find some names and some people, and hopefully you can fill in a few of the gaps and tell some good stories. And like I was saying, people are really excited to hear from you. Some Kanawha people I've been talking to, or they've been messaging me. 1968, when you took over, your assistant coach was Arnold Nicholas, and then some players from that first team: Clarence Verberge, Richard Rittema, Gary Johnson, Tom Ecoff, Dick Veldhouse, Paul Christians, Keith Allen, Leroy Hall. I found that you guys won the conference title that year. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but talk about that first season at Kanawha.
Well, there were three more guys that I can add to that. Larry Johnson was our quarterback.
Okay.
Jerry Tierhark was a running back. Roger Omvig was a receiver for us and stuff. But those were a good group of guys, and we put in kind of a wing tee without all the pulling of guards and things like that. And
Okay.
they were just a hard-nosed group of guys that just played hard. And we ended up 5-1-2. We tied 0-0 in our first game with Woden Crystal Lake, and we tied with Cal Community. And then we were 5-1 the rest of the way.
And that got you in, was that the outright conference title or was that a share? Do you remember?
I think it was an outright.
Nice.
And so those guys achieved their goal of 4 in a row.
4 in a row. Yeah. Who was your loss then that year? I don't remember if you said that.
I think it was Missouri Thornton.
Okay. All those schools you just said, it's kind of crazy though, because in the 2022 with all the consolidations and schools shutting down, the conference you guys participated in is pretty much gone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I can't think of a school that's left in that conference that's standing alone right now. Everyone's joined with somebody else, and that kind of bummed me out over the years that you kind of lost that piece of Iowa sports.
It's too bad that the small towns are, struggling with losing population and losing kids and stuff. Because down here at Roland-Story, I live in Roland.
Mm.
All my kids have grown up here, and Roland and Story City are both great small towns. And I don't think a kid can have a better upbringing than in small town Iowa and in a small school. So
yep.
I hate to see that, but yeah, the North Star Conference is all broken up, and all those schools are consolidated.
Yeah, I agree with you though. My wife and I live in Indianola right now, but we are it's 7:24. We're 36 minutes away from securing a 3.5 acre acreage 2 miles from our school. We're gonna get out of Indianola, live on an acreage 2 miles from our school, and let our kids enjoy that small town, small school atmosphere down at Interstate 35 is where we teach. So
oh, okay.
We're excited for that. We'll be moving around Thanksgiving, but we love Indianola and we love our church and stuff. But man, I just have been always craving to get our kids into that small school. They go to school there, but we want to be there and let the kids participate in all the activities. So I definitely agree with you there. Sorry, getting back to you. Arnold Nicholas, what was he like as an assistant coach? You came in as kind of a young new head coach. Had he already been there?
He was new there that year also,
okay.
and he'd gotten there earlier in the summer and had coached baseball and stuff. So he knew a little bit about what was going on.
Yeah.
Stuff, and knew some of the kids and so on, and he did a nice job.
Yeah.
He had the line and I had the backs. And
okay. Did you run the offense and the defense, or did you let him run one as a coordinator?
Oh, I think we just ran things pretty much together, and
okay.
just I don't think it was one running one and one running the other at all.
Yeah. Yeah. What caused you to pick the wing T? Why was that your offensive choice?
Well, like I said, I didn't really run the wing T like it's meant to be run, and we just had a wing back and two double tights and two split backs.
Okay.
And so it was just a simple hybrid thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I say, I didn't have any experience either other than junior high.
Yeah. How thick was your playbook, or just stick to the basic 4 or 5 plays each way type of thing?
Oh, our playbook got a little thicker as the season went on. Mm-hmm. We added a few things here and there, but it wasn't very thick. No.
Yeah. Yep. Draw them up in the dirt as you need to as you go, but stick to what you're good at. And yeah.
And sometimes it was drawing the dirt work pretty well.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yep. And I'm sure you never played against West Hancock or Britt, but they still run the wing T.
Yeah, I figured that.
And I mean, we do some different stuff now, and they passed the ball 12 times the other night, and we're like, what is this? Like, I don't know what's going on, but um, it's working pretty well. They're doing all right, but I still love watching that traditional wing tee and pound the ball and just beat the other team up a little bit is what I always go for. That's my type of football.
Well, that's what they do, and they do it extremely well, and they've been doing it for years, and kids grow up in the system, and that's the way to have it.
Yep, I love it. Wouldn't want it any other way. Yeah. So let's move on to 69 here. It looks like you still had Coach Nicholas, and then you Stanton Preston was one of your assistants. Again, I couldn't find the records for that season. But one neat thing is you guys played Britt that year. It was the only time in the Sanger era, is what we call it, that Britt and Kanawha played each other. Britt won that game 26-12. I know you and Coach Sanger didn't know each other very well at all, but do you remember much about this game where you got to coach against him in both of your earlier parts of your career?
We didn't know each other at all and stuff, but yeah, I know. I remember the game we lost, but no, they had a good team, and we had graduated just about most of our starters, not all,
Yeah.
most of them, and so this was the only full losing season I had up there. We were 3-5-1, and
Okay.
again we tied with Cal Community, and then from there we went up a little bit each year.
Nice. Yeah. And I don't want to make too many Coach Sanger comparisons, but obviously that's a big name in our community.
Yeah.
That was the only game they won that season was against you guys.
Oh,
Coach he won one game each of his first 3 years.
I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, so he went 1-7, 1-8, 1-7. And I don't know how much you follow college football, but Wisconsin just fired their head coach for going 2-3, and he had a winning record of like 68-24. I'm like, man, it's just crazy to me because nowadays you go 1-7, 1-8, 1-7, you're probably gone in high school football, college football, you name it. But glad to see back then that they stuck with guys, and didn't get too impatient like we see nowadays because turned out all right. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of success at the beginning stages there. So
Well, it takes time, and you got to have talent and some size and some talent, and he stuck with it, and he also stuck with his offense and defense, and that pays off in the long run.
yep, building that consistency and building that
I,
program.
I always admired him for that. I thought that was the way to do it, and I kind of follow that myself.
Yeah. Well, people would complain once in a while, like, "Oh, they would have won 4 more state championships if they would have switched them." Like, we're complaining about how we only have X amount of championships compared to another amount. I mean, like, we're
Right.
doing okay. Like, if you switch things, I see programs that are constantly switching with the latest trend, and they don't have a lot of success with that. And glad to see people are sticking to their guns.
Most of the time, if you're switching from a running uh, attack to all passing, it doesn't go.
Yeah, it's a
Usually it
desperation.
doesn't. Usually it isn't as successful as it looks on paper.
No, exactly. Yeah. So Stanton Preston, talk about him and Coach Nicholas. Do you know their whereabouts these days? Are they still around? Did you keep in touch with those guys?
Stan Preston was not one of the football coaches.
Okay, so
He was my girls' basketball assistant
okay.
at the
So
time. But Arnie Nicholas moved to. I think he inherited a grandparent or an aunt and uncle's farm in Missouri
okay.
and went down there and had I think a dairy operation. And then later on, from our former guidance counselor, I heard that he and his wife were no longer together, and he was driving a truck, and that was several years ago. I heard that, so I don't know.
Okay.
Stan Preston he was a science teacher, but he was real artistic with, I don't know the term for it, but with stones and rocks, and and agates and jewels and things like that. And as I recall, he's out in Arizona now
Okay.
and doing stuff with that, and I don't know what else.
Nice. Yeah, these are new names to me, so I'm always just kind of curious. You're teaching and coaching in a small town. Do you stay there? Do you end up somewhere else? It's always kind of cool to hear where people end up. So, 1970. How'd that season go? I had Steve Carter and Bob Sally. I found some names.
Yeah, Bob Salee and Steve
Sally.
Carter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
How was your season that year?
I think we were 4-4.
Okay.
And it was just
Beat the teams you were supposed to beat and lost to the teams you weren't supposed to beat type of season.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling? So you're 3 years in, you win a conference title, had a losing season, but it was close to 500, then 500. Were you feeling like you had the program in a good spot? Were you looking at different jobs at that point? Were you looking to move up, or were you pretty content where you were?
Well, I think that I was probably always keeping my eye out. Well, back then they advertised in the Sunday paper
Yeah.
all the time, and I was always keeping my ears out and looking out for possible. But I knew that I had to have a better record if I was going to have a chance to move up.
Yeah. Was a goal of yours like 4A football type of thing eventually? Or were you hoping to kind of climb the ladder or just find a good fit?
I I was hoping to climb the ladder.
Yeah.
And get to 4A and stuff. But we became quite comfortable at Roland-Story.
Yeah, you guys with the success you had, be a hard
Well,
place to leave.
that and like Kanawha, the towns are very, very nice, and
Yeah.
the salaries here are good, and it's very close to Ames. And my wife had an absolutely excellent job in Ames
Yeah,
at the hospital.
yeah, definitely. Let's keep moving here on your Canal seasons because I really want to get to that 73 team. 71, you had Dave DeWard, Mitch Frito, Jack Rasmussen, Ned Harley were some of the names I found. In the paper, I was doing my research on this website where I can find all the old papers. They said people were circling the Clemmy and Sheffield games as they were kind of the big ones on the schedule that year. Do you remember those games, or what was the paper right in saying those were the big ones?
Well, they were big ones in that Sheffield was loaded and had a very good team. Clemmy was a natural rival.
Yeah.
And in fact, their coach, Virgil Goodrich, was from Kanawha.
Okay.
He had grown up there and stuff. And so, and myself and my assistant and friends played golf in Clemmy. So, it was kind of a close type deal. And Boone Valley was a big rival because a lot of our people were related to the people of Boone Valley, back and forth.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of the stories were true, but some of the stories said, well, there was even land that exchanged hands because of those games. All that, I can't believe anybody would do that, but
Yeah, you never know.
they never know. But,
Handshake deals, maybe.
yeah, but we were 5-3 in 71, so we were starting back up.
Yeah. How about 72 with Don DeWard? I know Don pretty well. Perry Ecoff, Terry Johnson, Brad Henning, Marvin Johnson, Chuck Schur, Doug Betton are some of the names I found.
Yeah,
Leading up to that 9-0 season, how were you guys?
a lot of those guys were not Perry Ecoff or Mitch Frito, but the rest of those guys that you mentioned were all juniors at that time. And we had a good team, and we ended up 6-3 that year. We lost Armstrong at the end. They had a very good team, and we, I think, lost 18-12 or some such thing. And we had Perry Ecoff was out with an injury. Mitch Frito was out with an injury. So we were playing with basically juniors, and we played well, but we lost. But we ended up 6-3 anyway.
And 1972 is significant because that's the first year of the high school playoffs starting. Do you remember there being any buzz over the new playoff system? Like, hey, there's a chance to actually win a championship. Was that kind of on your radar at that time? I know 6-3 was like impossible to get in back then, unlike
It was
today.
absolutely impossible.
8-1 or 7-1 would be a stretch. But was there a buzz around the fact that there was these playoffs? Was it highly talked about?
Oh, I think that the kids and people and coaches were really interested in trying to make the playoffs and
Yeah,
thought it was pretty neat that there was going to be a state championship other than what sports writers came up with and
the mythical, yeah, state
other
champs.
mythical. I remember one incident in 1972. Again, it was with our rival Clemmy, and we were playing over there, and it was two well-matched teams. And I don't know if the officiating was shaky or not, but both sides were upset with it.
Yeah,
Both sides extremely upset with it. And in the fourth quarter, Perry Ekoff, our biggest halfback, got kicked out of the game for something that I don't think he did. Or I don't know what he did because he was not the kind of guy that would ever do that,
yeah.
hit somebody or whatever and all that. But anyway, he gets kicked out and our crowd goes absolutely nuts. And then the Clemmy crowd starts taunting a little bit and this and that. And so here we are. We've got let's see, Mitch Frito was out, I think. Brad Henning was in there at a guard and stuff, but maybe Mitch was in there, but little Terry Johnson comes in. And whereas the guy he was replacing was 6'3" and 185 or 190, Terry was 5'7", 130 and stuff. But a little old Terry with his glasses and stuff ran his butt off out there that night and gave everything he had. And they told me, the kids told me, they said, you should have seen it. You should have seen it. The guys on both sides were saying stuff to each other, and Brad Henning was actually foaming at the mouth and all this kind of stuff. Well, it ended up that we scored near the end of the game and won. As soon as the game was over, both bleachers, both sides emptied and ran onto the field. Like I thought, oh, guys, there's going to be a fight, and all this. And the coaches came out. The officials ran for the car.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, just plain ran for the car and got out of there. And it almost erupted because, of course, our people knew Virgil Goodrich because he was a Kanawha boy.
Yeah.
And this and that. Oh my gosh. This was small town rivalry at its finest, I guess, or heatedest, most heated, but it was something. And it was
Like,
something
what
I've never forgotten. It was funny.
was it like? What am I gonna do here? I'm kind of one of the people in charge. Do I just take off, or what do you do? Yeah,
That was something else.
yeah. What kind of crowds would you guys get at these games? I mean, were there a lot of bleachers around the field? When I was there wasn't. But did they have a good setup for the stadium there?
Well, we had decent amount of bleachers, but we had big crowds. I mean, everybody in town came.
Yeah,
And the same thing with the other towns that we played and so on. Everybody came, and I guess there was a lot of betting on the games because a lot of these people knew each other in the areas and had been there for generations and stuff. I was a little bit new to that, but
yeah,
I hadn't lived in a place where everybody lived for a long time and family after family after family and stuff. So, but it was interesting. It was always good heated rivalries.
yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm looking at these names. There's still names that are in the community now, like Rittemas and Johnsons and Ekoffs, Veldhaus, Christians, Verberges, Jacksons, Eliason. They're all. I mean, there's literally still people in Kanawha. Maybe
Harley,
since they went
Harley
Harleys.
Trinitarians, and a
Yep,
bunch of those, Marvin Johnson and a bunch of them.
yep. They're still there, and their family are still there, or their cousins are still there. It's pretty neat. So.
I think it is too.
Yeah, that's what I like. So let's get to 1973. Um, I've mentioned this before. Britt won the state championship that year in Class 2A, went 10-0. You guys go 9-0 in Class 1A. Somehow, with that point system, you went undefeated and missed the playoffs.
Yep, that was
Yeah,
a hard pill to swallow.
yeah. You ended the season with an 86-36 win over Armstrong. What do you remember the details that caused you to not make the playoffs going 9-0?
Okay, in 72, we had played a ninth game against Armstrong. And like I said before, they beat us 18-12. In 73, they had graduated a lot of those guys, and their record was less than 500 coming into the game.
Yeah,
And that counted against us, no matter whether we won or whatever. We couldn't win. Even if we won, we were out of the playoffs as soon as we kicked off.
yeah,
So administrators called Boone and said, well, what if we cancel the game? Well, then you automatically forfeit. We said, no, but I said, but our superintendent said, but this is keeping us out.
yeah.
And we have a very, very good team that has a chance to win the state. And nope, nothing would do. That was the way it was. When we kicked off, we were out.
Did did you have like a 2-year series contract with Armstrong prior to 72?
No, we just I think that was just drawn up in 72.
Okay.
72 and 73, yeah.
So like if you would have not even scheduled that game at all, you probably would have made the playoffs, essentially.
Probably it sounded like it.
Even before the season started, if you would have canceled the game saying that there was a high school dance that night or something, I mean, they still would have made you forfeit the game and you'd have a loss on your record? Or when did that kind
Well,
of become known that that was going to cause an issue?
well, we didn't know it at the beginning of the season, of course. We didn't know how the
Things are going to
season
shake
was going
out.
to go for sure, or how it was going to go for Armstrong. But so
Mhm.
it didn't come out until that week of that game.
Yeah.
So we were riding high and thought we were going to be in and all this, and then we find out uh, the day before the game that we're out.
Jeez. That'd be a
And
hard pill to swallow.
oh yeah, because I think it's easy for me to say now, but I think we would have won the state.
Yeah. Uh,
So that morning, that Friday morning of the game, after we're sure we're out, I had study hall and Donnie DeWard comes in, and Donnie was one of our captains, and he was one of the most delightful guys I've ever coached, and we've stayed in touch.
yep.
He's now the mayor of Pella.
He's a good one.
He's a millionaire and all that, but he comes in and he says, I figured it out. He said, if we score 86 points tonight, and then he says, when we score 86 tonight, he said, we will edge Britt for the scoring championship.
And you got
He said, you got to be kidding. 86 points. Are you nuts? And he says, we can do it. I know we can do it. He said, we'll beat them and we can score 86 or better. Will you let us do it? And I said, well, I said, I don't know. I said that isn't very sportsmanlike to run it up if that happens.
mhm,
And see, I had been dressed down a couple of games before that by one of my best friends, the janitor, who lived across the street from me. Came in on the day of a game and said, "Oh," and he came in and said, "Now listen, you SOB. This is my friend."
yeah.
He comes into the lounge and he says that the word from downtown is, you love to say the word from downtown. He said, the word from downtown is, you better not be putting the subs in until you get more than a 40-point lead tonight. This wasn't the last game, but it was one of them. But I said, you got to be nuts. I said, why? I said, those kids deserve to play. I said, and you're beating somebody by more than 40 points because we had to give them 40 points in bets. We had to give them 40 points or they wouldn't take the bets.
We got to cover the spread here.
I said, you got to be kidding. I said, you're nuts to be. No. And he says, by God, if you put them in and we don't win by more than 40, you're going to be on the first bus out of here. And I said, Daryl, I said, there are no buses that come through Kanawha.
Yeah.
He said, we'll take you to Belmont and drop you off. Just like that. But anyway, that's the kind of mentality there was, which was fun. But so
funny.
Here we are talking about scoring 86 points. And I finally said to him, all right, if you're close after 3 quarters, I'll leave you in until you get the 86. But you got to be darn close. You got to be in the 70s.
Yep.
So at the half, it's 50 something to nothing. And our one of my assistants, Bruce Bennett, says, I better go over to him and explain what's going on. So he goes over and he comes back just madder than a wet hen, yelling and hollering. He says, he called me boy. He says, now look, boy. And I said, well, yeah, I can see that. But so we went out and DeWard and the boys scored on first possession of the 4th quarter, and we had hit 86 on the nose.
Right away in the 4th quarter.
Yep, on the nose.
So you could have scored 100 if you wanted to, because there was that much time left in the game.
Oh yeah, easily at that point. And so we substituted everybody, and the final score was 86-36.
Jeez.
So they scored a bunch of points in the 4th quarter, but it was that was one of the memories that I have of that season. One of many memories.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, but I was a student assistant coach at Central, and I was Coach DeWard's assistant linebacker coach.
Oh.
So my first 2 years, 2006 and 2007, I was the guy that would like get his drills set up, make sure he had footballs for linebacker drills. JV games, I would get the linebackers in the games, like, hey, I want this guy to play these 2 quarters. I want this guy to do this at the JV game. I was kind of Don's right-hand man for 2 seasons. And my first year, he scared the living daylights out of me because he was a legend. I mean, he was a Central College legend at that point. And my biggest fear was messing up in front of him or doing or saying something dumb because he's Don DeWard. He's a big deal down there.
Yes.
I never understood this and I never questioned him, but I did, I think, years later. Every Friday night practice before the Saturday game, big college football game, he would do a thing called Friday Night Heat, where I'd have 3-4 footballs and each linebacker would get one chance to catch a pass from him, but it was running straight at him, and he would throw that ball as hard as he possibly could at the kids.
Jeez.
Like hard. And I'm like, I wanted to say, Coach, why would you risk breaking your starting linebacker's fingers the day before a big, college football game? But I never questioned him on it because I'm like, well, he's Don DeWard and he's been doing it for 30 years. I don't know why that became a tradition or what the story is behind that, but I had a lot of fun, learned a lot from the guy. He was a good dude, and I still send him an email every once in a while, and we catch up on things. So,
how big was Donnie at the time?
About like you can picture him back then. I mean, he's in good shape. He used to run to practice every day and run back home, and
he was 200 and some pounds, wasn't he?
I'd guess he'd be about 200. This is 15, 16 years ago, but he was in good shape. Always has been taking good care of his body. So he's a dude you don't want to mess with at skit nights.
He was 160-pound guard and linebacker in high school.
Okay. So I bet he's 200, right? I have no, I mean, I'm just guessing, but he's a solid guy, but in good shape. But he
Yeah.
could throw that ball hard, and I was like, he asked if I ever wanted to do it with the players. I'm like, nope, not one bit.
Yeah,
I'm
Donnie's a great guy, but when he and Skipper and some of those guys would go on recruiting trips,
yeah,
Skipper told me, he says, I love Donnie, but he said, you take him along, and he said, it's all the Kanawha stories. All the time. We've heard more Kanawha stories. And he says, and Donnie just loves to tell them and embellish on them.
yeah. Yeah, if Britt's in the dome, Wes Hancock's in the dome, he and his brother are there. I see him every single year we make it down to Cedar Falls. Even though, it's one of those things, it's Britt and Kanawha combined now, but he was just when it was Kanawha.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys, they still follow Wes Hancock stuff pretty closely, so that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. I hope to see him up there. It looks like West Hancock has a good chance again this year.
Yeah, if not this year, next year for sure. They're going to be even better next year. They bring a lot of kids back, and those kids are working hard. So,
Yeah.
yep. So you were 32, 16, and 3 overall at Kanawha in those 6 seasons. Um, we're going to get to your rolling story stuff here. I'm going to get to a few more sponsors, give you a little break, and then talk about what made you leave Kanawha for Roland-Story, and then talk about kind of the dynasty you built down there at Roland-Story. All right, we have Swenson's Hardware. They're your locally independently family-owned hardware store, and they have been since 1977, located in downtown Britt. They love being a part of the Britt community and strive to provide the service and selection that your friends and neighbors deserve. Looking for power tools, rental equipment, lawn and garden supplies, and more? Swenson's has it. Their online warehouse has 67,000 items, with many available for free shipping right to your door. Swenson's is proud to serve Britt, Hancock County, their neighbors in Mason City, Wesley, Garner, and more. Check them out on the web. And then we have In His Image Photography. Weddings, families, seniors, birthdays, maternity, and more. Let us capture all your important moments, big or small. That's In His Image Photography by Ashley, located in Britt. Check her out on Facebook. Then the Original Saw Company is the leader in American-made radial arm saws, crosscut power saws, and beam saws. They also offer accessories such as extension tables, measuring and clamping systems, dust shrouds, and miter saw stands. Original Saw's product line includes items for both the hobby woodworker and complex automated industrial settings. Sister company Williams and Hussey Machine and Tool manufactures and sells molders and accessories for making custom and stock moldings and trim. Original Saw provides, through Jones Machinery, a preventative maintenance and repair service of wood and metalworking machinery throughout the Midwest. Want to know more about the Original Saw Company? Check them out at originalsaw.com. And then thank you, as always, to the Britt Car, Truck, Bike, and Tractor Night Crews for sponsoring over 30 episodes, and they're going to sponsor all of 2023. Jared Winger and his company run these great events, which will take place next year in 2023. I need to put the new dates down, but they'll be on Wednesday nights again. Jared also owns Mojo Productions and has lived in Britt for over 15 years. The 6th upcoming annual events has free kids activities, trophies are presented for all categories, and a $1,000 award is given out at each show. You can't beat free admission and great food and drink from only Britt vendors. Check out the video that he posted on BrittCarCruise.com to learn more about these events. All right, Coach, what caused you to leave Kanawha for Roland-Story? I know you mentioned kind of moving up the ladder, but what was the draw to Roland-Story?
Well, the draw and Roland-Story was that it was open. The job was open, and it was close to Ames, and I knew that my wife would have a chance to, at Mary Greeley Hospital. But I had interviewed up at Emmitsburg that year, and man, of course, Dwayne Twait got it, and a couple other places, and just happened to get the job at Roland-Story, and so we were happy to go there.
So you were one of the finalists for the Emmitsburg job with Dwayne Twait then?
I don't know if I was a finalist. I had an interview.
Okay. Do you know what Twait's experience was before Emmitsburg?
He was at
Was it Mallard or?
Melvin Hartley Sanborn.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was there before. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was where he was.
Okay. That's pretty cool that's a neat piece of history that he got that job, and he did okay, I'd say, at Emmitsburg. What he won 7 or 8 titles, and
it was home for him.
Yeah.
That was his home.
Yeah, that was quite the program. That program prevented West Hancock from winning a few extra titles. Those guys had some good battles over the years.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what was the biggest adjustment from Kanawha to Roland-Story for you? A little bit bigger school. Was it fairly seamless to start up there, or was it a tough takeover?
Oh, the taking over the football program wasn't so tough, except adjusting to the conference. It was a conference in which there was more than one um, level. We were 2A, and there were a lot of 3A teams.
Mhm.
The small ones were South Hamilton and Roland-Story and West Marshall. But then we also had Nevada and Ballard and North Polk and Johnston and Carlisle
Mhm.
and some of those. And so you had to, you had to be able to play up with schools that had quite a few kids and stuff. But that's just the way it was. And that was a good challenge and stuff. I think my biggest challenge was in the classroom, because I had 3 different preps and a couple of things I hadn't taught before.
Yeah.
So it was taking a lot of time that way. And then I had to adjust to the rules, and like the practices, this, that, and the next thing, and so on. But the neat thing was that, and I didn't know it going in, that even though they had some down seasons and really got pasted that year before, they were playing a lot of sophomores
Okay.
at the year before, and there weren't hardly any juniors, and when I got there, only 4 seniors came out, and so our whole lineup was basically juniors.
Yeah.
And so here they had already played quite a bit as sophomores, and now they played a lot as juniors, and we weren't good when we started out, not at all. And we were very tentative about things and slow to catch on to the offense and this and that. But we got better and got more disciplined as the year went on. We won 1 game that year, but we started being more competitive by the end of the year and stuff. And so the stage was set for next year, because we had about the same team back almost.
Yeah. Did you hear anything from community members or anything about like, oh geez, we brought in this guy from a small school and now he's only won 1 game? Did you hear any of that, or did you have the full faith of the administration at least?
Oh, the administration backed me all the way.
It's good.
That was good. And the AD Dallas Cray told me, he said, you and I run the same offense pretty much. And he said, you've got them disciplined and they know what to expect now and this and that, and it'll get better. And I didn't really believe him.
Yeah.
I was really down about things. Well, luckily I had junior high basketball boys to get me through the winter and stuff, but it was hard.
Yeah.
But then the next year things went a whole lot better.
Yeah. That's good.
Uh,
Um, just to give a little overview of your career, then we'll get into a couple of the specific seasons. You were there from 1974 to 2013. You were 243 wins to 131 losses at Roland-Story to give you a career record between Kanawha and Roland-Story of 275, 147, and 3 ties in 46 seasons. As of right now, as we're recording on October 12th, 2022, you're sitting at 19th all time in wins, and you had the 10th longest tenure as a head coach in Iowa history. So, pretty cool numbers to look at. From 1979 to 1982, you guys had a 38-game winning streak, which included 2 state titles, and you had 17 playoff appearances along with those 2 titles. Um, and one of the seasons you're kind of alluding to with a lot of those younger guys coming up and then going into those titles. You guys made the semifinals in 77 and 78, and then had a year where you didn't make the playoffs, but then you won the state title in 1980 and 1981. You guys repeated. Obviously, at that point, you go from winning one game to a handful of years later winning a couple state titles, so things were pretty good. What was that? What was that stretch like for you? It had to have been a lot of fun.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. From the first game of our second season, 1975 on, it was a lot of fun because we were able to do some things and expand our offense and really compete with the teams in the conference and stuff. It was great. It was fun. We had a team in 1979 that should have made the playoffs. I mean, we felt got gypped out again. I think it would have been another state championship. It might have been the best team we had.
Didn't even make that's just mind blowing because
We lost,
nowadays, if
well,
you're any,
we lost a game. We lost the first game of the season to a 3A school by 1 point.
yeah,
And then we were unscored upon for the rest of the year
yeah,
and won the conference and all that. And we didn't make the playoffs at all. I think and my assistant coaches think we would have won the state
yeah.
because by that time we were pretty good.
So I mean, hypothetically here, we're looking at 4 state championships on your resume with the one in Kanawha, 79, and then you had the 2 that you won in 80 and 81. That's um, again probably tough to think about because the woulda, coulda, shouldas, but um, that playoff system back then made it tough. I mean, nowadays, if you're a good team, you're going to make the playoffs. If you're a state championship quality team, there's no question you're even in, let alone you have a chance to go to the dome. But back then, you were one screw up away from just being.
Yeah, it was. Well, I think it's too lenient now.
I do too.
I think it's too watered down. I hate to be the number 4 team
Oh yeah,
and have to go up against one of the district's number 1 because those end up being slaughters, a lot of them.
yeah. When they expanded in 2008, Pella went to the finals as a 4 seed, but I think besides that, I don't know if more than one 4 seed has won a game against a 1 seed in the 32 team playoffs. It's a formality that you're gonna get just destroyed. And then for the number 1 seed, it's like, there's been teams where you lose one of your best players due to an injury in that game and
Exactly.
messes up your season too. I mean, it could happen at any time, but it's one more opportunity to get hurt. So
Right. And number 4 team, it's another opportunity for some of their basketball players to get hurt for, no reason. No reason. I mean, we know it's a winning.
Yep, yep. I was the victim in the 16 team playoff where we missed out on the playoffs twice at 7-2, and we were teams that should have won at least a playoff game in those seasons. So I see
Yes.
benefits to 32, but I also think 24 makes sense. Give those district champs a bye or something and do it where a few more teams get in so that you don't miss out on those teams that should be in. But 32 is a lot of just
Yeah, it is.
blowouts. So
It's too many.
yeah. Talk about that 80 state championship team. You guys beat Manson 30-23. Southeast Warren, where I started my teaching career, you beat them 42-6. And then Hudson 12-0 in the finals. What was that like winning that first title in 1980?
Oh, it was fantastic. We probably were not favored at all. We were probably the underdog. Hudson had a really fine team. And they had some guys up front that I think went on and played in college, and they had a real good back. And we were not as big up front. We were quick, but we weren't very nearly as big. But the kids were tough, and I know that we kind of took out part of their offense when our big defensive end, who was smart as a whip and all that kind of stuff, but on the football field he was an animal, and he tackled their tailback and knocked him up in the air, and the kid came down on his head.
Hmm.
And luckily he was okay. but he didn't run it at that side again.
Yeah.
he,
What
he
was
did.
what was your player's name? That animal?
Mike Boning.
Mike Boning.
He played down at Central, just like DeWard did. And Brett Clayberg was on that team,
Oh
and he
yeah.
was All-American at Central.
Yep, I know the name.
Yeah, Brett Clayberg. Yeah.
Yep. Southeast Warren, like I said, I taught there for 2 years, and I was actually the head coach there for 2 years, and that was something else. I was like 23 years old. But do you remember Bob Young? He was their head coach for all those years.
Yes.
Yep, he's a good dude. He used to sub for us, and oh, he was just
He's
one
a
of my
good
favorite
guy. Yes,
people.
a good guy and a good football coach.
Yep, all 4'9", 106 pounds of him. There, he was a little guy. I was like, they're like, I'm gonna introduce you to our old head football coach, and he showed up, and I'm like, where's the rest of him? But he he knew his stuff. He would sit me down and talk stuff with me, and I liked Bob a lot.
Yep, he's a good guy.
Yeah. Uh, did you guys think you were going to repeat in '81? Was that a possibility going into that season, or was that the expectation at that point?
Well, it was a possibility. We had lost Boning and Clayberg and a number of the kids up front. So but we had had a lot of juniors that got playing time, and we came back with some kids like Brent Peterson and Tim Harris was a quarterback, and Robbie Honish was a halfback, and Peterson was a halfback, and Roy Carlson was a strong safety, and a number of kids. And again, we weren't very big up front, but boy, were those kids dedicated and did such a great job for us. But we didn't play a good first half, and they did. And we were down a couple of touchdowns and finally came back. I think we blocked a punt and finally took it in, and we scored with, it was under 2 minutes to go. Maybe it was under a minute. I don't know. But we had to fake a punt to do it, and we finally got a touchdown pass. And then we went for two instead of one.
Hmm.
And on the play, we were going to be in the end zone easily. It was a sweep, and they, I guess, jumped off sides, and the ref threw the flag. And so I guess the play stopped, but we were standing in the end zone. And he said, no, play is canceled. We move it to the 1.5. So we had to make the try all over again. So we went for two again, and this time we got it, but not by much.
Did you run the same play?
No.
What'd you do instead of the outside sweep? What'd you guys call there?
The first one had been a sweep to the right, around the right end. This time it was between guard and tackle on the left side.
Okay. Was that the longest like minute of your life in between those 2-point attempts of like, we had it and now we have to do it again, even though it's from a shorter distance, and if we don't,
yeah, then it's over.
yeah.
But yeah, it was hard. Well, and it was hard to make that decision because we had a great kicker, Brent Peterson. He would have nailed it and stuff, but we didn't want to go for the tie.
Yeah. That was a Bob Sanger mentality too. 3-4 times in my career we went for two at the end of a game, and he goes, we played 47 minutes and 45 seconds worth of football. We're pretty equally matched. Let's just get it over with and see who's the best on this last play and go.
Yeah.
That was always the mentality I liked as well. So I would have done the same thing.
Well, it worked, luckily.
Yeah. Yep. You're either a hero or the scapegoat on that one, however it turns out. So
Right. Exactly.
and the kids, the players, if you ask them 10 out of 10 times, their answer is going to be go for two.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be if you have a good team like that. What was it like for the Roland-Story communities to win these state titles? Have they had any success at the state level in other sports up to this point, or was this kind of the first?
Oh no, they've had plenty of success. They had won girls basketball in 1972 or 72 or 3. 70, yeah. And they had won several softball titles in the summer and a couple in the fall, and so they were not new to state
Winning.
competition.
Yeah, cool. You never know because sometimes a school they break through in one sport and that's
Well,
biggest
then
deal.
we had won the state in boys basketball in 1977.
Okay, so there'd been
So
some winning
there
going
was,
on.
I wouldn't say an expectation of getting there all the time, but the idea that we can do it.
Yeah, good. The next year, you guys lost in the semifinals. Were you close to the state championship game that year in the semis? 82?
Yeah, we got beat by Cedar Rapids. One of the Catholic schools that has combined.
LaSalle or Regis?
I think it was LaSalle.
Okay, that's
I'm not,
Xavier.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure. Yeah, they're together now. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but we it was all even, and then we fumbled a punt deep in our territory, and they went in and scored, and they were a very good team, and they ended up beating us and stuff. But
Yep. And then you guys made it to the first round that next year in 83. And then you had a spell from 84 until 91 where you didn't make the playoffs. What
right,
was kind of going on in that era there? Were you guys close a lot of seasons? Did you have a few down years? How'd that look?
no, I don't think we were very close. We had some down years, um, and again, our league was getting tougher, and as those bigger schools got bigger and tougher,
Yeah.
and but well, we competed pretty well, but we just didn't win that much.
Yeah. 3 and
And
5, 4 and 4 type seasons mostly, or just,
well, we had a couple where we won two, and I don't know what all the records were,
yeah.
but they weren't good enough, and all that.
Yeah. How'd you handle those seasons? Were you kind of staying the course like we talked about earlier, sticking with your guns, or did
Oh
you make
yeah,
some changes or
no, we didn't make many changes. We stuck with what we did and what we had and what we felt we did well and stuff. And the kids responded and I think played as hard as they could and
hmm,
so on. And again, our schedule was plenty tough and
yeah.
we ended up later on adding Waukee.
Oh geez.
I mean, and we would play them. I think we beat them more times than they beat us. We would open the season with them for about 4 years and stuff, and
Yeah. And
so
here's Waukee getting ready to build, I think, a third high school in the next 5 years.
right, it's amazing them and Johnston
Urbandale and all
and
Hagen.
Carlisle, and then we played Bondurant for several years in our conference in their 4A, and
Yeah, it's changed a lot down here. I know that.
yeah,
Yep. So you guys made the quarterfinals in 91, and then you had a stretch again where you didn't make the playoffs till 96, but then you made it in 96, 97, 98, 99, first round and quarterfinals. Since this is the West Hancock Britt Kanawha podcast, I noticed in 99 you guys lost to Iowa Falls in the quarterfinals. They beat West Hancock to get to you guys in the quarterfinals. So that would have been a chance for you and Sanger to play each other in the playoffs. Didn't obviously happen that year.
yeah.
That I thought that was kind of neat that there could have been that possibility.
Well,
Uh,
they were in our conference at the time.
Iowa Falls was.
Yeah, and when we played them during the year, they were ranked number one,
Mm.
and we beat them 13-8 at our place, and then they beat us in the playoffs.
Was that a close game as well, or
Not as close. They were better, but I mean, we didn't get shut out or anything, but
yeah,
it wasn't 5 or 6 points.
yeah, yeah. 2002, you guys lost to Applington Parkersburg in the first round. How well did you know Ed Thomas?
I knew of him. I knew he had been at Northeast Hamilton and stuff, and I had met him on a few occasions and stuff, and we had talked and stuff. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Did you guys play there, or was it at your place that year?
I think it was at our place.
Okay, so you never got to step on that sacred acre that everyone's read about in that book. Uh,
No, but
sounds
Ed was a a very fine coach and a classy guy and a very fine Christian man, and one that you could really respect.
Yep, yep, I can attest to that. When I was at Central with, Don DeWard and those guys, I went to a playoff game with two of the Sanger boys that were coaching there at Central at the time, Montezuma versus Applington Parkersburg, and we were looking at some Montezuma kids, and Monty won 35-0, just destroyed AP.
Is
And
that right?
after the game, I went to the defensive coordinator for AP. Brian Benning is his name. He was my defensive coordinator at West Hancock. And I went over to say hi to him, and he goes, "Do you want to meet Coach Thomas?" And I'm like, "He just got beat 35-0. I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to talk to some random college kid." He goes, "Oh, no, no, he'll talk to you. That's fine." I'm like, I was kind of nervous. Ed Thomas stood there and talked to me for like 30 minutes after
Yeah.
that game and just was asking me about everything. Just it was amazing. I told his wife that I met her about a year or two after he passed away, and she goes, "I've heard 1,000 of those stories of just random people that he encountered and gave a ton of his time to just to, you know, help out or just to talk." And I was like, "That's incredible."
Yeah, he was like that, and she was that way too.
Yep, yep, good people, good family. So
Yeah, very much
yep.
so.
Yep. And then wrapping up your career here at Roland-Story, 04, 07, you lost in the first round. 2008, you guys kind of made a little resurgence and made it to the semifinals. That was the first year they went back to 30. They went to 32 teams. You guys ran into some team called Solon, who was in their stretch of winning, I think, 5 straight state titles. What was that like, though, getting back to the Dome one last time and kind of getting the program back to that level?
Well, it was great because this was another real uh, lunch pail, hardworking type group of guys that there weren't any. Excuse me. There weren't any great standouts, but they were solid as a team.
Hmm.
We had started off the season playing uh, Southern Calhoun, and we ended up beating them on a field goal late in the game, but they went on and won the state championship
Yep. Yep.
that year in their class and stuff. And then we were able to keep going through, and in an oddity, we had to play Gilbert twice during the year. We played them both times at their place. Uh, they had made the playoffs, and I don't know what happened. They were in a different district and stuff, but somehow we got put together and we had to play each other again
Hmm.
and stuff. And that rarely happens, I think.
Yeah. Yep. They try to avoid rematches in the playoffs unless they absolutely have to.
Right. Sometimes I guess down in Des Moines it happens and around that area, but that group of guys won the most games that a Roland-Story team has ever won in a season. They won whatever it was, 12 games or
Yep. Nice. Was the Solon game close? I'm afraid I don't think they had many close games, Solon, in that stretch, but they were pretty dominant. Do you remember how that game went?
yeah, they were up 14-0 and driving inside the 10 at the end of the half, and they got down to about the 3, I think it was, and we stopped them on 4th down,
Nice.
just short of the goal line. And so we went in with a little bit of momentum and stuff, and we came out and toward the end of the third quarter we scored to make it 14-7. And then early in the fourth quarter, oh gosh, we had a chance. They threw a pass out in the flat, and one of our defensive ends stepped in there and had it right in his hands and could have easily run it in for a touchdown to tie it up. And it went through his hands
Oh man.
and stuff. But anyway, then they scored again and then finally kicked a field goal and won 24-7. But
Game of game.
we gave him a good game and we played hard and all that.
Yep. James Morris he would have been on that team, I believe.
He was a stud, yes.
Yeah. How do you game plan for a guy like him and some of the other guys they have? You just
Well, they had some really good athletes because one of them went on a scholarship in basketball,
yeah.
UNI, and then Morris went to Iowa. And
I think they had a kicker too. Didn't they have a kicker go to Iowa? Was it maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but they had several guys go all over the place, I think.
Oh yeah, they were a fine team.
Yeah. Kevin Miller, he did all right for himself. Won a title for Solon as a player, and then won, I think, all 5 of those titles. He just retired a couple years ago, but he had been in the title game a couple times after that, so he made a good name for himself over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you finished up your career in 2013. They named the field after you in 2020. Um, what can you take away from your time at Roland-Story, your time at just your coaching career in general? What can you say about that?
I for the most part, I loved every minute of it.
Hmm.
And to this day, I would like to still be coaching.
Yeah.
I after Roland-Story, I had a chance. My son was the offensive play caller at Ames, and so I went down there for 6 years, and then they changed coaches, and my son and another guy went up to Gilbert where this other guy was teaching, and he's the head coach now, and my son coaches with him, so I go over and watch practice every day, and a lot of times my 2 little grandsons are out there
Nice.
and so on, and so I do that. I'd like to be coaching.
Yeah.
A nice thing they did for me anyway, and for us this year, they had to switch offenses because they had been trying to throw the ball all the time, and the quarterback was getting killed, and so on. So they decided to switch to the wishbone that my son had grown up with, and so they invited myself and one of my longtime assistants over to talk to their staff about it and go through the way we did things and all of that. And so that was kind of an honor, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah. What's your longtime assistant's? What's his name?
Mark Billerbeck.
Okay, Mark Billerbeck. Is he still in coaching right now?
No, his grandson is playing for Roland-Story.
Okay.
He's a junior, but no, Mark's not coaching now.
Yeah.
I was lucky. When I started at Roland-Story, I had Jim Kenyon and Dave Donahue, who were super assistants, and Mark Billerbeck came that year and was with the junior high, and then later on he came up to the varsity, and I had some long time assistants that stuck with me for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And I was very, very fortunate because these guys were really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those deals where, yeah, your name's in the record book for all those wins, but you take, it takes a good staff to make that happen. It's not
Oh,
just the head guy. And
exactly. It's a total coaching staff thing or total team thing.
yeah, and the stability in the coaching staff is huge. We're seeing that at Britt, and then any program you see that's having success year after year. If you charted their coaches year after year, there's not a lot of changes going on. It's usually the
Right.
same people devoted to that program, which it's always neat to see. So
It's great. And I even had managers that were like
yeah,
that were with us for 4 years, and they still come back and talk to us, and they're friends here in the community. And I had both boys and girls as managers, and they were super and knew what to do and everything. I mean, they were almost like assistant coaches.
yep, definitely. All right, I'm going to get to my last couple sponsors, and then we're going to kind of wrap this thing up and just talk some high school football.
Okay.
My next sponsor is my brother, Eric Kroll with Ag Performance. Ag Performance is the leader in conventional seed throughout the Midwest. They have a product called Xylem Plus that is fighting against fusarium, stalk rot, white mold, and other vascular diseases. Contact Eric at 515-341-3361 if you're looking for a higher net return on your fields. That's Eric Kroll with Ag Performance in Buffalo Center, 341-3361. And then Kelly Real Estate has been in business for 63 years now, starting with Paul Kelly. Paul handed the business off to Steve and Deanna in 2017. They've been involved with the business for over 20 years now themselves. It's a great way to get to know people and get involved in the community of Britt and Kanawha. Kelly Real Estate this last year added Rachel Swanson to their team and also their office manager, Nora Clark, to complete their team. So if you're looking for just the right starter home, the perfect forever home, or a unique fixer-upper, or transitioning into your retirement home, call Kelly Real Estate at 843-4102. And my last sponsor for the night is McNeese Tire and Auto. They're your local tire expert for all your tire needs. Additionally, they offer automotive repairs, alignments, oil changes, farm services, and can take care of all your welding needs. They're located 1 mile west of Britt on Highway 18. Call them at 843-3536. That's McNeese Tire and Auto. So you already kind of answered this question. You go up to practice and stuff in Gilbert and hang out and see the grandkids. What else is keeping you busy these days before we wrap it up?
Oh, not a lot. I've had one eye done for cataract surgery, and I'm having another one next week.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to play golf because this last year because I couldn't see the ball after I hit it and stuff. But as you wrap this up, I just want to say that my 6 years in Kanawha were extremely special to me and my family.
Yeah.
So my two daughters were born there, and my wife, who passed away in 2021, January 1st, they were great years for us, and I will never forget the start I got in Kanawha and the support from the people and the good times that we had there and the wonderful people that we met and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still a great community. Like you said, you drove by there the other day and kind of got nostalgic and emotional about it. I mean, it's a great place, great community. And with them having to consolidate in with Britt to make West Hancock, it's been a great addition for everybody. And it was seamless and everyone gets along really well, and there's been a whole lot of success. So, kind of speaking of that, do you follow West Hancock much right now? Just because that's attached to Kanawha, do you keep up on things?
Yeah, I watch whether they win or not and where they're ranked and so on and so forth. Yes.
Yep. And I know you probably go up and watch your son coach a lot, but if you ever want to watch one of their games, the live stream on KIOW.com is phenomenal.
Yeah.
You get 4 to 5,000 people watching the games every Friday night on the live stream. Plus, the people come to the games, and it's a pretty big deal. Still, people really enjoy their West Hancock football.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. What are some other high school coaches that you admired or you got to be good friends with that people would know their names from the years of success they had? Who are some of those coaches that you would be acquainted with?
Well, up there at Kanawha, oh, let's see. Ken Wilbur over at Boone Valley and uh, Jerry Dunbar at Missouri Thornton and Larry Holstead over at Ventura. The name just a few. And down here, we've had a lot of coaches come and go. In fact, one of my former players coached at Ballard for a number of years and is now on the staff at Ankeny. And Ken Winkler is a friend, and just a number of people that have coached against and stuff. Some of them are ADs now, and so on.
Winkler took over. Was it Meskwaki Settlement he took over for a couple seasons a while back? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, man, you have to really love coaching to step into some of those gigs that some guys do like that. And I'm like, couldn't have been an easy job to jump into and try
No, I
to.
don't think it was. He's on the staff at West Marshall now.
Is he? I think they're doing all right this season, aren't they?
Yeah, they're real good this year again. I think they're undefeated. Yeah.
Yep. A friend of mine, Zach Fonts, he's the head coach at Bondurant Farrar. He was on the West Marshall team when they won state in '99. I coached with him at Central for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know Jerry Southmaid at all from Wapsie Valley?
Yeah, we played him once in the playoffs.
Yep. He was on staff at Central, so I got to know Jerry. He's one of my favorites.
He's a good guy.
Yep. He had a lot of good success. Any of those other type of legends that you associated with? Would you have known Don Anderson? He was the Buffalo Center coach, and now he's at Iowa Falls Alden. Did you ever run into Don at all?
No, not at
Okay.
all. I didn't know who was at Iowa Falls now.
Yep, he's been there for several years. Him and Daryl Schumacher are pretty good friends, and I got to spend a couple years at coaching clinics with those guys, and they had some stories. I'll just put it that way. On a PG podcast, can't say a whole lot more than that. So
Yeah. Another one was Bill Taylor from South Hamilton. That was a great guy, and Todd Coy at South Hamilton
Yep.
that I really liked and stuff. And there's
Yep.
just a number of guys around here that are good people.
Yep. Yep. Your generation of coaches, that coaching fraternity that, just you see all those names in the record books and, you associate those names with certain programs. It's just, I'm a high school football junkie. For me, I've been really honored to do this podcast with you because you were one of those guys that you see your name year after year in the record book. And once I knew you were from Kanawha, I'd always check up on your teams and see how you're doing. So this has been a lot of fun for me to catch up with you and get to know some of your background. So, yeah.
That's great. Who is down at Interstate 35? Who was the guy that was the wrestling coach?
It'd be Randy Calvert.
Yeah.
Yep.
Colt, his son Colton was an assistant for me for a few years.
Oh, okay. Yep. His wife Nancy still teaches at the school. She's probably on her last couple years before retirement.
Yeah, and Colton's down at Waukee now.
Okay. Yep. And the other son was at I-35 for a few years. Now he's the AD at West Central Valley.
Oh,
Yep. He's been over there for maybe 2 years now or something like that. Yeah. But Randy had a lot of success in wrestling, and he was a pretty good football coach too.
yep.
He's had some pretty good seasons. Yep, he retired 3-4 years ago now. Probably he had some health issues, so he stepped away and handed off his programs to some pretty good coaches. They've done all right filling in for him. So,
Good.
yep. All right. Well, we are going to wrap this up. I'd like to thank my 17 sponsors again for bringing in all this money to the Sanger Legacy Fund. This Saturday, I'm filming a podcast with Jay and Kevin from the live stream. We're going to talk about the first round playoff pairings. And then I'll have Dan Cooper on the next week. And then we'll hopefully have a couple more football playoff episodes as Wes Hancock makes a run through the playoffs. And then Beth Rasmussen will be on with me. And then state qualifying members of the 1987 state runner-up wrestling team. And I will be doing a podcast. And I also have one at the end of December I'm really excited for. It's the elementary teacher podcast. So I'm stepping away from sports for an episode. I literally just talked to and texted with my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Geelan, for about an hour and a half last night. Her, Mrs. Kitchen, Mrs. Hildman, Mrs. McCauley, and Mrs. Farrell from Britt Elementary. We're going to do a podcast, and I'm real excited for that as a elementary teacher myself to thank them for all they did for us and talk some elementary school with them. So, Coach Van Winkle, any last things you want to throw out there quick? Anything you forgot about earlier? Now's your last chance to let it go.
No, I'm sure I've forgotten some important things and important people, and I really apologize for that.
I told you before, you can't worry about that one bit. People will not be offended at all. So
I'm just lucky that I've got my son that's still coaching and lets me come to practice and stuff. And I've got my two young grandsons that are in flag football and stuff and are, they're ball boys on the sidelines and things like that. So I get a kick out of that. I've got another grandson that's big into trap shooting and is real good at it and stuff. So I've got some things to go to and watch and that sort of thing.
cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure those young ones keep you busy, keep you young too.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Youth is wasted on the young is what I was always told. They have more energy than they know what to do with.
Yep.
So yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a good time talking some old school football with you. So we always end the podcast with Go Eagles, but tonight I think it's appropriate to end it with Go Bulldogs. What do you say?
I say go Bulldogs.
Go Bulldogs. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yep.